a sudden disappearance, and a power struggle that supposedly shook the world's richest circles overnight. But when the noise fades, what's real? And who profits from the chaos? The headline arrives like a siren in the night. Jeff Bezos files a $6 billion divorce lawsuit. It spreads in waves. Clipped videos, breathless narrations, thumbnails with red arrows and circled faces. The number is so specific it feels undeniable. The story is so dramatic it feels pre-written. Viewers don't even have to lean in. The plot does it for them. But there's a problem with stories that arrive fully formed. Real life resists clean lines. Real legal action leaves fingerprints you can follow. When a case this large exists, it drags a trail of paperwork behind it like a comet. You get a court, a jurisdiction, a case number, a spokesperson declining comment with studied precision. You get reporters on the phone with clerks, not anonymous legal insiders typing in comment sections. You get dates that can be checked. You get quotes that can be traced. That's how gravity feels when a story is real. Rumor has a different physics. Instead of gravity, it uses velocity. It jumps platforms and changes outfits. In one post, the $6 billion is a settlement demand. In the next, it's a damages claim. By nightfall, it isn't a claim at all. It's a verdict someone swears they read. Screenshots appear with cropped edges. A leaked memo circulates with no letterhead, no file path, no chain of custody. The text looks like legalese until you read it twice. Then it looks like what it is, a script trying to pass for a statute. The figure keeps everyone locked in because it creates a sense of math. If the number is exact, the story must be exact. That's how the mind works under pressure. We confuse precision with proof. We confuse a big number with a big fact. But money isn't the evidence. The evidence is the evidence. If nobody can show you where the number sits inside an actual docket, the number isn't a fact. It's a magnet. When a claim this large lands with no paper behind it, the simplest explanation isn't that the paper is hidden, it's that the paper doesn't exist. And when the paper doesn't exist, the questions should get louder. Who started this? Why now? What is the narrative trying to bury or replace? If you can't answer those, you're not dealing with a case, you're dealing with a cascade. But that wasn't the whole story. There's a second storyline the rumor avoids because it ruins the rhythm. The couple had a very public relationship arc culminating in a very public wedding. That event lived on camera flashes and mainstream headlines. It generated quotes, photos, and a trail of congratulatory posts from names that don't risk their reputations for guesswork. It's the kind of timeline you don't have to leak. You can see it unfolding in real time. Now lay the rumor on top. A secret divorce lawsuit quietly filed right on the heels of that celebration, a $6 billion figure attached. A vanishing act at an airport nobody can verify. It's not impossible. But at this level, implausible matters. These are the kinds of developments that do not stay under the bed. They burst through the floorboards. If a megawatt marriage turns into a megawatt divorce in days, the sound is deafening. You would feel it in every credible outlet within hours. You would see the timeline shift from features and fashion notes to legal language and on-the-record statements. That's what genuine ruptures do. The rumor leans on a psychological trick, recency shock. We just saw the wedding, so the divorce twist feels like the only thing big enough to top it. It's the sequel logic of the internet. If the first act is a spectacle, the second act must be louder. The problem is that real people don't live inside sequel logic. They live inside schedules, contracts, NDAs, and careful planning that spans years. If a break ever comes, the break arrives the way major news always arrives, through a mix of verifiable records and institutional reporting that avoids getting burned. There's another layer rumor merchants never mention: the boring structures around wealth. Long before a headline romance becomes a headline marriage, advisors are building frameworks that govern property, privacy, and process. These are designed to prevent chaos, not create it. They reduce volatility. They make sure that even if a relationship ends, it ends inside guardrails. A courtroom can change people's lives, but it doesn't rewrite well-built architecture overnight. When it does, it leaves marks you can measure. Compare tones. The rumor speaks in exclamation points. Real coverage speaks in commas. Filed in X court, on Y date, by Z counsel, seeking A, B, and C. Watch for those commas. They're boring and they're trustworthy. And if you don't see them, consider the possibility that you're not being informed. You're being entertained. And what happened next would surprise even the rumor traders. Here's the twist that never makes it into the thumbnail. There is legal background chatter around the couple, but it lives in a different room. Over time, disputes have spun off involving a family member and old tabloid conflicts. Those fights left paper. They show up in filings. They involve dollar amounts you can actually verify. They don't require dramatic music or chiaroscuro screenshots. They require reading. This is exactly how rumor hijacks reality. It takes a small set of documented facts and glues them to a bigger, splashier narrative. A fee petition turns into a war chest. A discovery request morphs into a 6B expose. A court date on a side matter becomes the big hearing with a shadowy witness who never enters through the front doors. None of that bait survives contact with an editor who calls the clerk's office. But it doesn't have to. The rumor only has to survive in your feed until you've watched an ad. Follow the incentive chain. A huge divorce number equals clicks. She fled the country equals shares. Banned from space equals outrage. Each step is a new burst of engagement. None of those steps require a record. They require a reaction. That's why the rumor doesn't cite, it performs. It keeps the appearance of documentation without ever suffering the risk of documentation. If you want to test a narrative, use the door test. Could a working reporter walk through a courthouse door and confirm any piece of this? Could they ask a clerk for the docket? Could they call counsel and get a no comment that at least confirms representation? If the answer is no, you're viewing theater. The legal system is not perfect, but it is persistent. It produces receipts because that's how it moves people, money, and rights from one column to another. So, yes, there is legal noise in the orbit, but it's not the 6BB chorus you've been taught to hum. And if your favorite channel never pauses to separate the two, you're not watching analysis, you're watching opportunism. And rumor doesn't quit when facts get in the way. Every tabloid saga wants a runway, the midnight SUV, the hooded figure, the private jet idling under floodlights. A caption appears with a timestamp so precise it feels like biometric proof. The plane number is conveniently out of frame. The destination is undisclosed, which is rumor speak for we can say anything after this. By morning, the clip has been edited into half a dozen explainers. Each one says the same thing. She ran. Private aviation is an easy prop because most people never touch it. It's mysterious. It's exclusive. It must be where secrets live. That's why a handful of generic B-roll shots get repurposed across dozens of videos. The angles repeat, the grain repeats, the silhouette repeats. But the commentary changes every time, and the claim hardens with each retelling. A 2-second clip becomes the cornerstone of a disappearance that no reputable outlet confirms. If a high-profile person truly bolts under a legal spotlight, the event is loud. Security gets involved, agencies ask questions, flight trackers ping, camera crews appear at the other end because that's how this economy works. Airports leak, hangars gossip. Someone always trades a detail for a byline, and when that happens, the story grows structure. You get corridors and gates, not just adjectives and insinuation. There's a deeper reason the flight myth won't die. It gives the audience a moral geometry. The good guy stands still and fights, the bad guy runs. That shape is irresistible because it lets us judge without proof. In reality, going dark rarely looks like a red-eye to a tropical island. It looks like lawyers. It looks like a temporary media freeze. It looks like quiet houses and tightly written statements and the kind of silence people mistake for guilt, but often means strategy. So, did anyone flee? Or did the narrative need someone to leave so the rest of the script could lift off? If the answer lives only in the captions and never in the records, the runway isn't a place, it's a prop. But rumor needed altitude, so it strapped a rocket to the plot. When gossip wants to feel bigger than life, it borrows symbols. In this case, it borrows rockets. The next beat arrives with the drama of a science fiction finale. A clause revoking access to space. A blacklist. A ban from any future mission. It sounds personal, punishing, and poetic. It also sounds like exactly the kind of claim that should have concrete sourcing if it were true. Let's separate stagecraft from structure. Aerospace programs don't move like fan pages. They run on flight readiness, safety protocols, mission manifests, and checks that make accountants weep. Decisions as severe as ban this person would be material. They'd be debated, recorded, and likely explained. Even if kept internal, someone credible would learn enough to report responsibly. The story would land in outlets that know how to parse mission sheets and certification language, not just in a carousel of creator takes with ominous instrumentals. The rumor relies on a narrative that turns an adult relationship into a territory war. It suggests that access to rockets can be granted or revoked on a whim to settle a score. It pretends that what's at stake is not safety, or program integrity, or public trust, but ego. That sells. It also collapses under basic scrutiny. The difference between a cinematic plot and an operational decision is the difference between fireworks and fuel. One is spectacle, the other follows physics. Now, it's also true that symbolism matters. Spaceflight is legacy territory, and public images do get curated around missions. But curated isn't the same as litigated. To make a claim like no-fly clause, you need names, dates, documents, and corporate context. Without those, the ban reads like what it is, a line written for shock, not a line drawn by a board. If this were real, the headline would not need a reaction video to breathe. It would breathe on its own. Industry reporters would call former executives, current engineers, safety officers, flight ops teams. The piece would arrive with oxygen tanks. Instead, what do we get? Theatrical gasps, on loop. Still, one number refuses to die. $6 billion. Numbers tell stories, and big numbers tell myths. 6 bios isn't on your screen because it's confirmed. It's there because it's clickable. It promises scale. It promises stakes you can feel in your chest. And because it looks precise, it slides past your skepticism before you even know it moved. But wealth at this level doesn't live in one stack. It lives in structures. Trusts, holding companies, operating agreements, prenups, and tax strategies exist long before the first engagement headline. Those structures don't dissolve because a rumor wants a crescendo. If a split ever happens, advisors do math at a glacial pace compared to the speed of your feed. Assets get valued, not guessed. Rights get negotiated, not narrated. Even the most sensational of cases eventually bends toward spreadsheets. Look at the cadence of real high-profile separations. They don't debut as TikTok voiceovers with laser pointers. They start as short, sober updates from outlets that want to be right more than they want to be first. Petition filed. Served on date. Hearing scheduled. Then the analysis appears, residency implications, possible venues, the way a prenup could shape the field. If a massive figure gets floated, it's attached to context. It arrives with a reason you can weigh, not just a gasp you can share. The rumor machine flips that timeline. It starts with the dollar and works backward. It invents leaked ledgers. It invents burned-down lists of watches, paintings, jets. It invents a logic where gifts aren't gifts unless a video proves they were heartfelt. Every invented detail invites a new replay, a new round of outrage, a new set of comments. And because each round feels more complete than the last, the audience confuses fullness with truth. Here's the test you can run from your couch. When someone drops a giant figure, demand a small fact. The name of a court, the case number, the judge's initials on the docket, the county clerk who confirmed receipt. If you get silence or a deflection, the number isn't news. It's a net. Don't get caught. And the machine that throws that net is bigger than any one rumor. Why do the wild claims win? Because the platforms where you hear them don't reward caution. They reward novelty, velocity, and emotional charge. A thoughtful sentence loses to a breathless one almost every time. If you're a creator on a deadline, that pressure feels like a countdown clock. Your title is a trumpet. Your first 8 seconds are a cliff edge. You either push the viewer forward or you disappear. That's how we slide from sources say to confirmed without any paperwork in between. It's not always malice. Sometimes it's momentum. A creator sees a spike on a smaller account and decides to add context. Then another creator repeats the context and adds new details. By the third echo, the story has a spine made of adjectives, not evidence. Try contradicting it in the comments and you feel the temperature rise. Now it's a team sport. Whoever asks for proof gets told to do your own research, which is rumor economy code for let me keep my views. The props are evolving too. Photo B-roll can be stitched into scenes that never took place. Audio can be chopped to suggest conversations that did not happen. Voice cloning can hit a cadence close enough to trigger your pattern recognition while staying just blurry enough to dodge scrutiny. Even court documents can be faked with templates. The con doesn't need to fool a judge. It only needs to fool you long enough to finish the runtime. So what do you do if you actually want truth? You adopt newsroom habits without newsroom access. You look for primary sources before personalities. You ask who benefits from speed and who benefits from proof. You inventory verbs. Rumor uses exposed, destroyed, obliterated, and banished. Reporting uses filed, alleged, declined to comment, and according to records. One set is a drumline, the other is a map. And here's the most uncomfortable part. The rumor economy runs on our appetite. If we stopped feeding it, it would starve. But we like the sensation too much. The rush of being first, the heat of a take, the feeling of knowing a secret before it breaks. That's why the safest play is also the hardest. Slow down. Count your commas, ask for the docket, let other people trip the alarms while you wait for the door that opens with a key. Which leads to the question everyone asks next. Imagine a legitimate split landing tomorrow. The first hour would not be a whisper campaign. It would be a set of nouns and numbers. You'd see a named court. You'd see a case number. You'd see statements from counsel that say almost nothing but prove everything. Representation, process, posture. A credible outlet would anchor the first wave with verifiable lines and careful caveats. That's your sign that the world has shifted. Then you'd see the ecosystem move. Business desks examine corporate implications, even if the case is purely personal. Legal reporters outline the basic posture, petition for dissolution, venue, service, and any interim orders. The second wave of coverage adds history, property footprints, philanthropic entanglements, possible residences that affect jurisdiction. None of this makes for the best reaction thumbnail. All of it makes for reliable context. If the matter were sealed in part, you'd still see the scaffolding. Motions to seal leave traces. Calendars update. Courtrooms schedule hearings that may close their doors but still list their dates. Redactions appear like blackout blinds you can still measure. Silence becomes structured, not total. People misread that structure all the time. They think a sealed paragraph means a non-existent case. In truth, it means the opposite, a case robust enough to require protection. What about the human parts the rumor machine loves to weaponize? The she fled, he struck back, they banned, the aide confessed. In real cases, the human parts arrive as affidavits, sworn statements, exhibits, and depositions. They arrive before a judge, not before a comment section. And they create consequences for anyone who decides fiction is faster than fact. That's why professionals move cautiously. A sentence in a filing costs more than a sentence in a video. The wrong sentence can cost everything. So here's the viewer's checklist. Named venue, case number, counsel of record, public calendar. A chain of coverage that travels from reputable source to reputable source without needing a creator to interpret the basics. When you see those, you're in a different landscape. You're not chasing smoke anymore. You're walking on ground. And that brings us to the part most stories never give you. A six-spillity demand, a midnight jet, a ban from space. These beats play because they're cinematic. They're also unverified as presented in the viral script. The marriage arc is public. The rumor arc is theatrical. The legal noise you can actually touch doesn't match the headline you were sold. That's the dissonance. That's the trick. Could everything flip in an afternoon? It could. High-profile lives change at high speed, but genuine turns don't need mystery accounts to introduce them. They arrive with case numbers, records, and reporters who would rather be late than wrong. Until that day, this saga lives in the rumor mill, a place where screenshots masquerade as filings and sources always seem to forget the one detail that matters, the part you can verify. So here's the promise of this channel. We'll bring the drama without breaking the discipline. We'll keep the pulse fast without faking the heartbeat. We'll give you the hooks, the cliffhangers, and the pivots, but we'll anchor them to timelines and tests you can use long after the feed moves on. If and when a real filing lands, you'll hear the nouns first, not the adjectives, and you'll know the difference because you just practiced it for the last 20 minutes. Thanks for watching. If you want more breakdowns that separate spectacle from structure, stay tuned. The next headline is already on its way. When it hits, we'll be here, with the commas, the court, and the calm.